What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, a lot of big news, some very interesting developments and all that, so I'll be covering all that here in this weekly update. But before I get into that, I first want to mention I will be doing my weekly live stream here on Sunday at noon Eastern time like I always do, so be sure to join if you can. It'll be a great time. We'll just be talking cars and answering all your questions. But anyway, getting into the news here, the first biggest story here really this week is that BMW has revealed the 2024 5 Series, and so they're also revealing the i5 variant as well at the same time here. And so the 2024 5 Series is longer, wider, and taller, and one compromise of the gas and the electric version sharing a body here is that the extra height required for a battery pack raises both cars, and BMW tried to minimize that effect by painting those thick side skirts black on both vehicles, but let me know what you think about the styling there in the comments below. But for a BMW these days, I think it looks pretty good with the reasonably sized grille and all that, but the taillights do remind me of a Jaguar XF from my opinion, but maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think about that. But the 5 Series design boss told Autoblog that the more conservative styling is not a reaction to people blaming us for the XM or the 7 Series. When I'm asked why the kidney grills are so big, I always say that these particular models are for status-oriented customers. The 3 Series and the 5 Series cars are for people who are looking for other things. They don't want to show off. They want a car that expresses their achievements in a different way. Personally, I think some 5 Series buyers still like to show off, but those buyers just wouldn't go for the crazier styling. But anyway, on the inside here, you get a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster and a 14.9-inch touchscreen. The air vents are hidden, and the LED strips there on the dashboard and the doors are similar to the ones on the new 7 Series. It also gets the air console gaming platform that you can use while parked, and it also has attentive hands-free driving up to 85 miles per hour with a highway assistant package. Mechanically, right now, the lineup consists of a 530i, a 540i, an i5 eDrive 40, and an i5 M60 xDrive. The 530i starts with a 2-liter turbo 4 that has 255 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque and runs through an 8-speed automatic and rear-wheel drive, with the xDrive being an option here, of course. Even this base one does a respectable 5.9 seconds 0 to 60. The 540i is all-wheel drive only and runs the 3-liter turbo straight 6 for 375 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque, with an overboost function to bump it to 398 pound-feet of torque for a short time. As for the i5, the eDrive 40 version is rear-wheel drive only, and that does 335 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque, and that can go up to 317 pound-feet of torque in the boost modes, but that's pretty strange for an electric vehicle to have less torque than horsepower. But anyway, it still does a 5.7 seconds 0 to 60, and then the M60i xDrive version gets all-wheel drive and does 590 horsepower and 586 pound-feet of torque, and that goes up to 605 pound-feet of torque in boost mode, along with doing a 3.7 seconds 0 to 60. All i5s get an 84.3 kilowatt-hour battery and 205 kilowatt fast charging. Range is 295 miles on the slower one and 256 miles on the M version. The electric 5s are almost 900 pounds heavier than their gas versions, topping out at 5,247 pounds for that all-wheel drive M60. The lightest rear-wheel drive 530 weighs a much more reasonable 4,041 pounds. If you want something in between, there's going to be a plug-in hybrid 5 Series that will be coming to the US next year. But as for the current versions, they'll start production in October, but pricing is already out. So the 530i is going to be starting at $58,895, including destination, for a base 5 Series now, almost 60 grand. And then the 540i starts at $65,895, and the i5 starts at $67,795 and tops out with the M60 version at $85,095. So anyway, cool to see that. Moving on here, Aston Martin has revealed the DB12 this week, and while it looks just like a refreshed DB11, Aston Martin claims that 80% of the components are new. The new front end looks great though, and the car does have a wider track front and rear for a bolder stance here, but the side and the back are basically identical to the DB11. I'm a pretty big Aston Martin fan, and I can't even tell the difference between the back end and the side profile of this and the DB11. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with the way they look, it's just that those parts of the design are 7 years old at this point, so it's a bit disappointing to me, honestly. Another disappointment is that the V12 engine is gone. Hopefully it comes back for the DBS, but at least for the DB12 here, it is gone, with the only engine being the 4-liter twin-turbo V8 from Mercedes-AMG. But compared to the DB11's V8, this one is way more powerful, jumping from 528 horsepower and 513 pound-feet of torque in the old one to 671 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque. So nearly 150 more horsepower with this revised version of this Mercedes V8. So this is achieved through bigger turbos, new cam profiles, a new compression ratio, and extra cooling. It still puts the power through an 8-speed automatic, which I believe is still a ZF 8-speed, thankfully, although I didn't see it specified if it was whether it was a ZF1 or not. But anyway, it runs through an electronic locking rear diff, also for the first time on an Aston Martin. It'll do a 3.5 seconds 0 to 60 and a 202 mile per hour top speed, which are impressive enough that Aston claims the car is a super tourer now instead of a grand tourer. In addition to the wider track to help handling, the car also has next generation adaptive dampers, stiffer anti-roll bars, and torque vectoring as well. Steel brakes are standard, but carbon ceramics are available too. And the interior is a huge improvement for sure, but also has an interesting choice here with a very low touchscreen position. But it's notable that the software was developed in-house and doesn't use Mercedes tech at all anymore. It's a relatively small 10.25-inch touchscreen, but still looks great and does have wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. There's still lots of buttons, impressive-looking materials, and other new touches like the digital gauges and the new steering wheel there. The last big change is no more buttons for the gear shifter, moving to a little lever there instead. Deliveries start in the third quarter of this year, and there's no pricing for those yet. But a little bit bummed about that one. I was pretty excited for that vehicle, and then whenever that was all it was a new front end and a new interior and a faster V8, but still just I don't know. I'm holding out hope the DBS version will be a little more impressive. But anyway, yeah, nice to see that they're coming out with something new. It'll hopefully help the company. So great to see that. Lexus has again teased the next generation of the GX and the TX this week. So first for the GX teaser here, it shows us a pretty good look here at the back end and the sides with a sharp looking boxy design with cool fender flares and a big light bar there in the back. And yeah, I don't know. I think everyone's pretty hyped for this thing. It seems like they really knocked the styling out of the park so far. We'll see what they do with the rest of the vehicle, but I mean, this thing is pretty sweet. And they also revealed they'll be debuting on June 8th for both this GX and the TX. So anyway, speaking of the TX though, it gets two new teaser images for this one. One shows the 3 rows of seats here, and another one shows off the passenger side door panel and part of the dash, which reveals a Mark Levinson stereo and what appears to be the same screen setup as the RX. Pretty predictable there, you know, no big surprises just yet. But anyway, less than 2 weeks ago for the full reveal of both of those, and so very exciting to see that we don't have too much longer to wait either for those. And back to BMW here. At the swanky Ville d'Est Concorde Elegance, BMW has revealed the Concept Touring Coupe, essentially making a new interpretation of the clown shoe design that was first seen on the Z3, which is now on the Z4. Unfortunately, it's just a one-off for now, though, and while the head of design for BMW told Autoblog they would like to see it produced, don't get too excited, because he added that it is a one-off at the moment and there are no concrete plans to put it in production, but we made an agreement before we set sail for Lake Como that if there's enough interest, we will take a look at it. It could be a very low volume version, like 50 cars or so. Which means it'll be stupidly expensive and will become, collectible immediately, so they'll never get driven, and just basically be a waste. I mean, it's cool, whatever, the more cool cars out there, the better, I suppose, but, yeah, it just seems, I just hate when they do these super limited production things, because then it's just like they're making art pieces and not actually building cars anymore, but anyway, as the internet pointed out, if you do want a Z4 Coupe, there's one available already. It's called the Supra. So there you go. But anyway, interesting to see that. For some more good news, if you're a BMW collector that likes having all these rare 5 of one car, Bimmer Post this week has a new story here. This one, one of the prominent members on the forum with a strong track record, is claiming that the M3 CS, that after that's had its single model year run here for the 2024 model year, that the M4 will be getting a CS version to slot between the regular competition and the more extreme CSL model. So, I mean, this is pretty predictable. It's copy and paste. He said it basically, they will have different headlights, but aside from that, I mean, it's basically going to be a 2-door version of the M3 CS. And I mean, it makes sense. You split your engineering costs out, and, make it a little more affordable to do these types of things, increase your profit margins. And hey, I mean, if there's enough BMW buyers out there that have these blank checks to write for all of these limited things that they hardly ever drive, like fine, like whatever. It makes sense for BMW to keep the money printer going here as long as they can keep finding buyers for these things. And so anyway, again, I'm not complaining about more sweet cars out in the world. Just, it's a little hard to get excited about some of this stuff. But anyway, interesting to see that. And there's a couple other quick BMW updates here very briefly. So first, the mid-grade i4, a normal regular car for people that aren't collecting BMWs. Anyway, that's going to be available with all-wheel drive finally for the 2024 model year. Previously, you had to go up to the M50i version or just to get all-wheel drive in an i4, which is kind of silly. Thankfully, BMW has remedied that. We now have all-wheel drive available on a regular i4 in case you don't need to be burning up the streets with your sub 4 seconds 0 to 60 time. So anyway, adding the extra motor unit for all-wheel drive, though, does take the horsepower from 335 horsepower to 396 horsepower, along with 443 pound-feet of torque, and does drop to 0 to 60 from 5.5 seconds to 4.9. But impressively, it seems like the range hasn't really changed. Goes between 282 and 307 miles of range still, depending on the wheel. It'll cost $4,500 more than the rear-wheel drive version. And lastly, the 7 Series and the i7 get a few additions as well. Like there's now a rear-wheel drive version of the i7 available and an all-wheel drive version of the gas 740i. Plus, there's the arrival of a plug-in hybrid 750e that has 35 miles of range and 483 horsepower from a 3-liter turbo 6 and electric motor. So all nice additions there. Good to see them rounding out those lineups. Hyundai. They have an interesting follow-up here this week on the Envision 74 concept yet again. The third week in a row I'm talking about this car. The first week there was a rumor that they were going to do an actual production version of it. The second week, the whole thing was that the rumor was squashed, and Hyundai themselves from both Korea and America were like, no, we're not doing it. Drop it. Okay, fine, we'll kill the rumor. And then they just made it harder on themselves because Top Gear magazine and website, they asked Hyundai's chief creative officer, who is the guy that designed all the Lamborghinis and stuff that was poached by Hyundai here. Anyway, so they asked him if Hyundai could build it potentially, if it was something that was even possible. And he said absolutely, and added, "We're serious about this. This could come into production. We have the platform. It's a motorsport platform." Which that one just as a little aside there. I'm not sure what platform he's referring to, because the original thing with the Envision 74 was a hydrogen thing and then also combined with an electric thing. I don't think that would make much sense to do, especially a motorsport thing, unless they're planning on doing another super, rare limited run or something like that. But for an actual production car, I don't know why they wouldn't just use the EGMP platform from the 5 and the 6. But anyway, lastly, he added, "I hate doing show cars and then nothing." And I commend that. It's very respectable, and I really hope that they are serious. It's just like one minute they're like, "No, we're never doing it." The next minute they're like, "Yes, we're doing it." So, yeah, I don't know what to believe anymore. It seems like they are leaning towards that, because here's some other stuff here. So I think it's still in the works potentially, because the original rumor might have had a kernel of truth here. So that original rumor was that there was going to be a new production version of the Pony thing here, and that would be something that would be put out for Pony Day, which is coming up in like a week or something. And that clearly didn't turn out to be true. But Hyundai this past week did reveal that they rebuilt the original Pony Coupe concept from 1974. So that old 1974 car, the original one was crushed. And so they wanted to rebuild it as a historical, point of pride for themselves. And so they actually commissioned Giorgetto Giugiaro, the original designer, to build a new one, and showed it off at Ville d'Est as well here this past week. And at the end of the press release for that car, which is cool, they built that thing. Obviously that's just a show car here. It's from 1974. But at the end of that press release, though, Hyundai does say that the concept embodies Hyundai's bold determination to enter the sports car sector for long-term leadership as an automotive company. So they basically just said that they want to bring a Hyundai sports car to market. Now, whether or not they do, but they're saying they're determined to bring a sports car to the market just because it's something they need to do as a dominant car company. So to me, that's basically them saying we are building a sports car. Whether it's a production version of the Envision 74 or something else entirely, I don't know. But it sounds like they're serious. We will have some kind of legit Hyundai sports car at some point. And we're not talking about, an N version of some normal car, like an actual purpose-built sports car. We will see when that happens. That could be a long ways off. But, what better car to build it on than this thing, I think. So, we'll see what ends up happening, but I think that we will see something. It just won't happen as soon as a lot of us are hoping and hearing, but I think, give it a couple of years and hopefully there will actually be something that turns up. We'll have to wait and see, but interesting to hear that. And Ford dropped some interesting information here this past week about their future 3-row SUV that'll be on the same new platform as the next generation F-150 Lightning, I think, or whatever new pickup truck's coming here from Ford during their recent Investor Day presentation. So Ford CEO called the SUV a personal bullet train because it'll be able to do at least 300 miles of range on a charge at 70 miles per hour, along with 350 miles of range in mixed driving, they claim, along with recharging 150 miles of that range in just 10 minutes. So possibly even more impressive is the fact that they're claiming that the range out of this they're claiming is going to come from a 100 kilowatt hour battery, not the 140 kilowatt hour battery pack that you get in the current Lightning with its big battery. So they say this is thanks to a new battery that they say will weigh less and cost less, so that with the same amount of scarce battery raw materials, we can bring our product to 3 customers instead of 2. But only the Model X right now can do that kind of range out of that size battery pack as far as SUVs go. And it sounds like this vehicle is going to be a good bit bigger than a Model X. So that would mean that they're superior to the Model X as far as efficiency goes. So we compared this coming forward through a crossover to the current Expedition, which makes sense if the SUV is going to be on the same platform as a full-size pickup truck. That is what the Expedition is. It's the SUV on a full-size pickup platform. So, I guess they just didn't want to call it the Expedition for whatever reason. They said it won't look like the Expedition. Instead, they say it's going to be longer, sleeker, quieter, and lower as well. So don't expect anything that can off-road or anything like that. But strangely, the head of Ford's EV division said we could have converted an Expedition into an EV, but it wouldn't have made for a very good EV, and it wouldn't have made for a very good Expedition. Even though it's exactly what they did with the F-150 Lightning. The Lightning is literally an F-150 that they made work with a battery pack. And I would argue it's actually a pretty decent truck. And Ford thought it was a pretty good truck. It's selling really well. So he's literally slamming the Lightning platform and the Lightning, process for this future thing. So that's kind of a strange statement for this guy to make, but anyway, so kind of throwing some shade at the Lightning here, in my opinion. But anyway, they're very ambitious about this thing. They think it's gonna be super impressive. Their next generation truck's gonna be super impressive, and they're really hopped up about it. So we'll see, if it lives up to their hype here. But also during the event, another really good thing that I'm actually very hyped about is that Ford announced that starting in January of 2024, their EVs will have mandatory no-haggle pricing, and they're really restructuring it. They're still going to work through the dealers because that's what they have to do with the franchise laws, but they're basically going to give people the option. So you can either buy the car entirely online and have the car delivered to you from a retail replenishment center that'll deliver the car to you in less than 10 days directly, and you can completely avoid the dealer if you want. But you can also still go to the dealership and have that option for that more traditional experience. Still has the no haggle thing, but if you want someone to walk you through the car and shine it up and deliver it for you and do the whole ta-da thing of the dealer, you can also do that as well. And so I think that's good because then you're kind of tossing them a bone. But they really said when they were talking about this that it's about building that customer loyalty and that experience being good for people. And so if you have that, then that's going to hopefully bring more customers in, discourage less people who don't want to deal with a dealer and just go and get a Tesla online instead. I think this is really smart, and as long as the dealers don't make too much of a fuss about it, I think it'll be great. So awesome to hear that. Cadillac this week has also announced the Escalade IQ and announced that it's coming later this year and showed off the badge here and basically nothing else. But thankfully it was spied just this past week, and I can't show those spy pictures here unfortunately without having to pay for them. So what I can say though is that the two main things that it reveals is it's going to have an 8-lug setup, which means it's going to be on the same platform as the Hummer EV and the Silverado EV. So figure on that same huge battery pack, same kind of power levels most likely to those, maybe toned down a little bit, we'll have to see. And then also, it shows off that's going to be the same kind of boxy kind of, look for it. It'll look pretty close to the current Escalade, it seems. I'm sure there'll be some key differences, and we'll see if it's just that same body or if it's a completely new thing that just happens to look like the regular Escalade. We'll have to see about all that. But anyway, very cool to hear that that's actually coming later this year. And interesting that they ended up using that name. I remember when that name was trademarked back in 2021. Turns out they did actually end up going for it. So anyway, cool to hear that. And some other Cadillac news here. They revealed a couple of changes here to the CT4 and CT5-V and the Blackwing versions as well for the 2024 model year. So while they don't get refreshes just yet, there was some thought that maybe this will get the same new interiors we just saw in the XT4. And you know, there's those refreshes. So I'm guessing that stuff's going to come for the 2025 model year if we're lucky enough to get one. And so as far as the other changes here, though, they do get special 20th anniversary graphics on the grille and the rocker panels this year to celebrate 20 years of V. There is also some new colors here, and for the CT5-V Blackwing, you can now get it with Super Cruise if you get the automatic. So great to see they're offering Super Cruise there. That really, as long as you're okay with the automatic, manual will still probably be my pick, but if you're okay with the automatic, to have that Super Cruise capability in that epic car. I spent a week with one over the winter time, loved it to death. Having that thing now with Super Cruise and stuff just makes it even better, and so awesome to see they're continuing those and making them even better. GMC also has their own little teaser here this week, showing the front underbelly here of the coming GMC Canyon AT4X AEV edition, which is their version of the Colorado ZR2 Bison, essentially. So it shows the winch-ready front bumper, extra underbody protection there, and 35-inch tires, and the full debut will be happening on July 6th for that. And there's also two quick Mercedes stories I have to cover here. So first, they officially announced that they're going to be bringing the four-cylinder SL43 here to the US. It loses 94 horsepower, going from the twin-turbo V8 down to the turbo 4-cylinder, along with being 1 second slower for the 0 to 60, now doing a 4.8 second time. But for those that want an attractive roadster and don't need to have something super fast, this is going to be a great savings. It starts at over $27,000 cheaper than the SL55, so this one starts at $111,050, and it arrives this summer. So great to see that. Then the other Mercedes news here is a correction I want to make about last week's update. So I reported last week that Mercedes wasn't going to be offering the AMG GT 63 4-door in the US, and that's something that Autoblog is reporting. They said it was from, I guess, Mercedes European site. There must be a miscommunication there because thanks to my Mercedes dealer contact who looked into this, because that didn't sound right to them. They hadn't heard that. So he reached out to me and wanted to look into it. And it sounds like this info wasn't exactly right, although it was close. So while the GT63S will be going away, that's because it's being replaced by the GT63S E-Performance version instead. And the non-electrified regular GT63 will still be offered for the 2024 model year as well. So my apologies for that confusion. So the S version is the one that is technically going away here in the US, but just because it's getting replaced by the E-Performance. So, you know, good to see that they are still offering the non-electrified version. People, you know, that want the more traditional thing, they can have that, but great to see we're getting the E-Performance one as well. And huge thanks once again to my dealer contact there for clearing that up for us. And for the last news story here this week, Mini is doing another special edition. This could be the last manual transmission Mini, though. We'll have to see what they end up doing. But this one is for the manual John Cooper Works version of the regular Cooper, and it's called the 1-to-6 edition. It's manual only to celebrate, again, what may be the last Mini, but I don't think they've officially confirmed that, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, this special edition has special graphics, badges, and wheels, along with 3 more horsepower for some reason, and a few other touches. Only 999 of these will be built for the world, but Mini hasn't said how many they plan to send to the States or what they'll cost just yet. But cool to see them doing another little special edition here to celebrate these older Minis before the new one comes here later this year. And I really hope they offer the new one with a manual, but I'm not holding my breath. So, you know, this could be the last farewell of the manual, which would be sad. But until they confirm that, we'll just hope for the best. Lastly, though, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have a couple of new members join here this past week. I also want to give a huge thank you to the Truck and Car Guy and Carlos Roja for both donating memberships here in the last week's live stream. So thank you both so much for that. And while most of the people that got those gifted memberships were previous members that were able to rejoin, I did also want to welcome the 2 new members that got in from that, Quadrangle Singles and Tom Dubois, who are both new members here. I also wanted to thank SLMD Sedan for becoming a member last week as well, before the live stream there. And so anyway, I really appreciate the support from all of you. I hope you're all enjoying the perks here, and be sure again to join here in the live stream where you'll get priority answering for all members. And for anyone else who'd like to become a member and support the channel here, there's always going to be buttons here on the video page and on the channel page, little join buttons there, as well as a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Please also leave a like, comment, and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.